Jack Viscomi, and today I have the pleasure of sitting with Julie Meitz. She is a humanitarian and really has spent her life making a difference in other people's lives all around the world. So Julie, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Zach.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been said that you are a voice for the voiceless, which is such a powerful phrase, right? So can you tell me a little bit more about how you give those people a voice?
I suppose my greatest mission and greatest hope is to have happy, healthy families and save the planet too, and communities, environments that are where people get clean water and food as a basic human right. And at the moment, as humans on the planet, we're desecrating a lot of these environments of where people live. One of them, of course, being the Congo. And this is the second largest country in Africa, second largest rainforest in the world, second to the Amazon, which is the first. And we're actually destroying a lot of people's homes because of a precious conflict mineral called Coltan. And people at this very moment are losing their lives. We often don't know this story. A couple of years ago, I ended up in the Vatican, and there was a Congolese archbishop, I think he was there at the time, and we were talking about the situation, the crisis in the Congo, and he said, "Can you help us?" And at the time, he was the previous secretary to Pope John Paul II, and I said, opened my mouth and said yes, and realised that I'd said yes to a man of God, and that I had to keep my integrity. And it's not just him, other people who are refugees in our own country. And there's refugees from many countries, but this one is one of the biggest humanitarian crises. The people who have, there's more bloodshed than World War II at the moment. It's like 6 million people lives lost. This is more than the whole population of New Zealand, and 1.5 million refugees, who are at the borders. And most people don't know anything about this story. It's not told on news feeds, and it's not just the people of the Congo. Or this is the most important, because those figures of what we're doing, the sexual violation of those women and children, husbands have died, children have died, the women are weeping for all these things, and we just throw our technology away like change it as often as we just about change our underpants. That's how crazy we are, really, and then we throw them away. We have 50 million tons of it thrown away every year. It's more than all of the aircraft ever made, and this is what we're doing as humans. So that's why I came. I believe it's a voice for the voiceless, but also for our children, because many of our children are really affected. They're affected by addiction to computer games, the Freudian psychology. I met a man on a plane in Malta, and he was telling me about the amount of Freudian psychology that they use to get kids addicted, and adults too. And we see it playing out in this world. But I went back after hearing that and did the research. Went and spoke to the people throughout the world who are looking at this internet gaming addiction, and found out this is really real. And I suppose I want to stop this Holocaust in a way, because it's genocide and slavery, and 27 million people are in slavery. I mean, you look at Martin Luther King and JFK and Washington, and even Wilberforce. They stood up to slavery years ago, and yet we're reinventing the same wheel. We go around the same cycle. We just have a different form of colonization.
I mean, we hear this all the time, that that there's ways in which we can make a difference in the world, right? Or that there's these third world countries and worse who are experiencing the things that you've witnessed firsthand and are helping with. And I think a lot of people just realize at some point they're not even sure where to start. And
Yes.
and here you are dedicating your entire life to it. So
Yes.
what got you into this line of work in the first place?
Well, I suppose a love of people, really, and love of families, and wanting to have a better future for families in the future. I mean, I suppose I'm of a generation where we were lucky. We had clean water. We had families that were functional. You had parents who cared, and we lived in a country that was beautiful. But even that is being affected at the moment. We have climate change crisis happening all the time. We have earthquakes, tornadoes, hurricanes, floods all the time. And we're just not the only low-lying country in the world. There's heaps of us. We'll all be the refugees in the United States. People don't stand up and be a voice, really. But also for our children. I have been a teacher and social worker and barrister and solicitor. And I've always been sort of searching for this holy grail of how to help people fulfill their dreams. You know, why did people go into the gangs? Why was everybody changing the F word? You know, why was that so normalised? And why had the face word gone out? You know, these things became normalised dysfunctions. Before they, you know, there's every minute there's domestic violence call, every 4 minutes, domestic violence calls out, and the United Nations is saying this, you know, these figures are all around it. You see it on the streets of New York, you see it in countries like New Zealand, you see it everywhere, no nation not affected by it. So that's the thing really. I think that we all have a purpose on this earth, and sometimes we just forget. We we have so much challenges that we go into this virtual world because it doesn't feel as hard, it doesn't feel as bad as our real world. But this virtual world is harming so many people.
You've been doing a lot of work and impacting the lives of many people and being proactive in doing that. And I would love for you to share with me an example of somebody or a situation that really stands out to you in which you've been able to do that.
Well, I suppose sometimes you don't feel like you've done enough. That's why I'm here. I don't feel like I could help enough. And sometimes it really breaks my heart, really. And I suppose a few stories pop into my mind, but one of them is the lady in Uganda who was under the refugee under the tree, and you know, just missing that chance to be able to help her. And I feel like, you know, could have I helped her? How many people could have I helped? But this is why I'm here, because I hope that, you know, by sharing this story, more people become more aware, and more women and children and families won't lose their land. And they won't have to be the refugees, and they won't have to be violated and raped and, you know, put at gunpoint to get off their land, and that's the biggest thing. But I also, so that's that voice for the voiceless, this terrible, heartbreaking grief that I couldn't have helped more. And most of the time I feel like that, you know, I feel this calling, this waking in the night, you know, what can we do? Another one was just asking a young man at the petrol station just recently, he was at university, what would you do if you could do anything to make the world a better place? And you could. He said, I don't know. But then I asked everybody, what would you do if you could do anything to change the world and make it a better place? Anyway, I asked him again, what if you could know? And he said, well, I would probably quit my job and play computer games all day long. And I thought, wow,
yeah,
he's our future leader. You know, this was an intelligent man, you know, and this is what he felt. So he was in this virtual world, and I thought these are the next leaders, the gangs, poverty, all this is interconnected. But the other story I remember was, you know, like going down that rabbit hole of, you know, why was everybody swearing, and seeing these young children on the way by school right beside us. They were under 10 years old, and they were swearing the F word non-stop, and they were visibly really upset. And I said, what's the matter? You know, why are you so upset? And they said, we can't find Pokemon. And I thought, wow. And I realised that afterwards, I found out that Pokemon was being used by Google Maps to go into places where we couldn't reach, to do the Google Maps. And so this is surveillance at its all-time, you know, and these children, their phones that they have access to, $1,000 a piece. Sometimes they didn't have any food on the table. And this is the crisis of our time. This is the humanitarian crisis. This is the climate change crisis. It's not just the environment as in the physical world, as the environment of our families, because they're at a crisis point. There's no family not suffering. No one in the whole world, I don't believe. I don't know anybody. Maybe you do, but personally,
well,
it's hard to find.
And I mean, Julie, it's just amazing, a lot of the things that you're doing and making a difference in a lot of those areas. And for somebody who might be watching this or listening to it later, I mean, what would be a place in which they could start, maybe even to get into contact with you? Like, what would be the best step for them to get started on the same journey, or even to talk to you?
Well, I suppose the contact really is their own education. You know, it's one of the greatest things. You know, a lot of people watch Netflix. Look at Netflix ones like City of Joy, the Congo story. See what's really happening. Look at Death by Design and see the supply chains that are happening. You know, that illegal supply chains of this coltan that goes through the Asian and European markets. You know, look beyond the veil. Look just remember, if you're American, remember George Washington, even though he didn't like slavery, it took a while for it to change. It did change in America. Martin Luther King stood up to this, I have a dream. So did JFK, so did Wilberforce, the British. Let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's all of us be cognizant of it. Look at blood on your cell phone. Just become aware. If everybody just did like Noah's Ark one by one, that's 7 billion changes in the world. That's a lot of hope. But if nobody changes, then we're really down a rabbit hole. And I don't know. Is it like the Terminator? Or is it going to be the Martin Luther King story? Is it going to be the JFK shot, or is it going to be the hope? I hope it's the hope. That's the thing. I hope that we really wake up as human beings. I hope for the sake of our children. And I know Padaris says that technology is great. We're all using it, but when we give it to our children so young, like he says, he was going to be here today. Nicholas Padaris is a Harvard psychologist. He said, I love my car, but I wouldn't give my 8-year-old kids the keys to my car. But this is what we're doing. We're giving 5-year-olds keys to the cell phone, and there's 244 million porn sites in 2014. And you just have to press a button and you're exposed to things that you and I probably never exposed to.
Yeah, well, listen, Julie, thank you for being one of those people who has taken the step and continues to. I mean, you've been involved in documentary films and creating awareness and writing books and really getting the message out there and joining me on this TV show today as well. So I want to thank you for, I know you're usually the person behind the scenes. You don't like kind of being the center of attention, but I think it's you have a story and a message that really needs to be heard. So thank you for joining me today. It was really a pleasure to have you. So
thank you so much. And I hope and pray that the people of the Congo, that their story is really told, and for our own children in our Western nations. So thank you, Zach. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, thank you, and thank you all for watching another episode of Times Square Today.